Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to On Air with Intentional Guy. I'm Michael Chestnut, your host, and today I am here with Michaela Cox. How are you doing today, Michaela?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. I am saying your name right, right?
Yeah, you
Michaela?
got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm really bad. I can barely say my own name on most days. So,
Well, back in the day when I was in college, I had a running joke with my girlfriends that I wouldn't put out, publicly. I said, I'll answer to anything except for three or four choice words. So as long as you don't call me those, I'll answer to anything.
we're
But
good.
anyway,
Same way. Same
yeah.
way here. Well, Michaela, it's so good to have you on our show. Michaela has several books out, has a tremendous story to share, and we intentional guy, Michaela. I love a good, true life redemption story. I have one myself. Where life sometimes is just crazy, is it not?
Oh,
And
yeah.
we can't always predict what's going to happen.
No,
And but but I love when I was going through your site, you get this that it's all about the choices we make in our life.
absolutely. Yep.
And I want to take a moment. I just want to shift things over to you right now, Michaela, because you got a story, and I would love if you would take a few moments and share your story with my audience here today.
Yeah, sure. I call it my 38 triple D. It's probably not what y'all are thinking. It has nothing to do with physical appearance, I promise. Although y'all, I don't know how much y'all can actually see, but what it is a way of describing and a good summary of if someone said, "Tell us what your life story is in one sentence," it would be that because it's been a journey of going from surviving to thriving or learning how to strive to thrive in all things to include disability, lifelong disability, the first D of legal blindness. The second D would be divorce at 26 in 2005. And then the third D was in 2017 of the death of my beloved husband when I was age 38. So all three Ds, disability,
Mm.
divorce, and death by the age of 38. So yeah, it's been a lot. And I'm working on some new things to kind of my system to explain because people are like, well, how did you do all that? And so I have this system that I tell people about. So anyway, I'll answer whatever you got.
Well, I know that your disability is what?
It's legal blindness, but I literally, since the day I was born, I've never taken a breath. I've never had a day that I didn't have blindness or legal blindness or that I didn't see the world through totally jacked up eyes, like legit. Like, there's so many problems
Mm.
with them, but that's okay. You figure it out. I was actually born totally blind. And I am obviously from a background of faith, Christianity. And you, we seem to be on the same page as that. And I'm guessing that's some of your audience or people you want to reach or whatever. Um, we believe that at 7 months old, and when I say we, me and my family, that God healed me and gave me my sight because I do see. It's just impaired or legally blind. So even though it's impaired, I do see when I'm not supposed to medically be seeing. So anyway, that's that. And I literally have done everything that I've done with the disability or legal blindness or what's being called now, although I'm not sure how I feel about it, a differently abled. I see the good points and bad points. I heard the term the other day. I'm like, huh, that's interesting. Um, like I went through kindergarten through 12th grade and did the ACT and got into college, graduated from college, tried a couple of rounds of grad school, had to change courses for various different reasons. Eventually graduated for what I had my master's in with honors in 2016. Got married once, then twice again to my husband that passed away, the love of my life. Raising, had and raised and keep raising two kids who are around my house somewhere today because it's in service.
Yes,
uh,
love that.
yeah, exactly. But you still got to do work, so you just make it work. And write 9 books and building out 5 series. So here I am. You figure it out and you make it work and you pivot. And if you can't move the mountain, you find a way around the mountain. And I don't know how else to word this differently, so I hope this doesn't offend anyone. It's kind of like they told me, no, you won't be able to do this. And I basically said, hold my beer and sit back and watch, or, a glass of grape juice, whatever your poison is per se. But so I'm not one for taking no too easily. And I was taught not to believe in giving up or quitting or stopping, and do the best you can and see where it goes. So here I am. Hi, everyone.
Wh- Well, let me ask you. So, one of the biggest things is, and we agree on it, choices
Yes.
matter and all that. But a lot of times, to get to where we realize that, we have to go through a lot of bad choices to discover that. Where do you think the turning point was for you in the realization? Where do you think the positive side of you turned around for you, or have you always just had that positive side for you?
Well, I mean, it's not easy. It's a struggle. So there's always been hard things when you grow up with a disability. And my childhood was extremely challenging because I didn't have a lot of friends growing up, a lot of rejection, a lot of bullying. But as far as what I did, I was taught that you do your best, you don't quit, and you don't stop, and you don't give up, and you do what you can. And so that's what I've done. I could have chosen a different path. Probably, I would say that my worst mistake, but it ended up being the right decision in the sense that, that song by, oh crap, who is it? Now I have to, Rascal Flatts, God Bless the Broken Road That Led Me to You. Even though I got,
Yes,
yeah, okay, so you know what I'm talking about.
that's
I
my
went blank.
wife and my song. So
Yeah,
yes,
right. So, anyway, I drew a blank for a second, y'all. Sorry, I had to think. Of course, when you have to say it, you can't think of it right away. But, I married the guy I thought I was supposed to be with in college. We were college sweethearts, and this is not about, you know, whatever. It's not about him, but
him,
it's
right,
explaining my story. So I'm not meaning any ill will or anything, but and it didn't work out the way I thought because I didn't know what was going to happen in that relationship, and so that was eh, looking back was probably not the person I should have married, but I don't regret what I did because it was part of my journey and part of my story, and it led me to the guy I was had uh, the greatest joy and pleasure of my life, and the outside of my salvation, the greatest gift of my life, obviously my children. But we don't
right,
make children on our own. So if we're not with the people we're with that make those children, then we wouldn't have those children. So I still say the greatest gift. But
right.
and I was with him for 12 years. So had I not married my first husband and then divorced him, then I would have never found my way to who I was insanely in love with and have been without for 5.5 years plus. So anyway, it's that broken road thing. One led me to the next. So I can't really say I regretted it, but it was not a good situation. You know what I mean?
Well,
It wasn't
well,
fun.
and I like that because my story's similar. I had, there are so many things in my life. I don't know if you call them regrets, whatever, but bad choices. That's what it is, that I made, and that spun me into a 15 years of trying to seek restoration. And
Mhm.
I battled depression, suicidal thoughts, just trauma, lots of stuff, right? But
The human
as I
experience?
look back,
No,
do
sorry.
what?
I was like, what, the human experience?
Yes, exactly. And
I'm not
and when I
making light
look
of it. That's
back,
not what I'm saying, but we all have those things because we're human. It's our human nature. We unfortunately live in a fallen world that's sinful, and so we have all this crap that, it is what it is.
it is. And with me, I'm like you. I look back on those. Do I wish I would have done things different? Yes, but do I? Am I guess Paul said it best in the scriptures. I can rejoice over those things now because those things have made me who I am today. And actually, I'm a better person because of those failures that I had, because I learned from them and I grew from them. And like you said, I would not be with my wife that I am today and the relationship I am today with it without it. But also, though, I found God in the midst of all
Right.
that mess,
Yeah.
and God showed up big time for me. Do I wish I would have done things different? Yeah, I was wrong, man. But we repent and
Right.
we move forward and we
Yeah.
go forward. And my son, we were having this conversation the other day, and he was talking about a failure, and I was like, yeah, but I'm proud of you because you realize it for what it is, and you're learning from it, and you choose to
Yeah.
grow instead of.
I was going to
How
say,
many
what
people
is
make the same mistake over and over
yeah.
and
If
don't
you're
ever
not
change?
trying, you're not failing. And if you're not failing, you're not learning. What is that thing?
Mm.
You know? So, anyway.
Yep.
We don't learn. We can learn from the wins, but we learned a lot more important. I think harder, probably harder lessons and more complex lessons, but the more important valuables that serve us well when we're in the harder times. And
Yes, I will.
you
I
wish
will
it
tell
was
you,
different, but it's not. That's usually the way it goes. So,
I like what you said because my character today is was created more from my failures than my
yep,
successes.
it's usually the way it goes.
And you know what's so great about having a faith in God is knowing that God can take those ashes and make beauty out of them. He can do things that we didn't expect uh, from it. And I've had to learn that God ways are not my ways. So he
Yeah,
does things differently,
yeah.
and he has a sense of humor too. I've learned as well.
Oh, yes, he does. Oh, yeah, no doubt.
But I like one of the books that she led me to that I'm going to order and read. And I got to tell you, so I'm an author now too. But I didn't. I
Oh,
I was
awesome.
not
What do
much
you
of a
write?
reader. I wrote a book on my story, my
Oh,
life
cool.
story called Exposed, and I'll send you a copy.
Okay, great.
I'll send you the Audible. I have an Audible version of it. I
Oh,
can
I'm
send
so
to
much
you.
better with Audible because like people like assume that I read, which okay, I do read. Like I'm a
Right.
huge reader. I love to read. I have the heart of a reader, but physically, if you ever see
That's
me
it.
physically hold a book in my hand to physically read it, I'm like, I'm good. It's the legal blindness. It makes it very difficult and not fun.
Oh, of
Like
course.
30 minutes in, my eyes are exhausted. My neck's kind of like, screw it. I'd rather either someone read to me or go on Audible. So I'm like, yes, audiobooks. Yes, let's do it. And I'll like
So
do it for hours. So
I have a free one available, and I'll send that to you as
nice.
soon as we get done
That would be
today,
awesome. I would
so
love
that
that.
you can have that. But you wrote a book called Now I See. Tell me
Yes.
about that.
Well, it's basically it came from my own life story. Now I see. Like I was born blind and now I see. Literally, like I'm seeing now, and I've been seeing for the majority of my life. Very few, only 7 months where it was in complete blindness, darkness, but it is impaired vision. So I've still had to navigate, like I said earlier, a life with a disability and figuring all the things out that come with it when you live in a world that I think the statistic or people say that we take in 90% of our world through our sight. Well, when your eyes are jacked up, it doesn't quite work that way. I promise you,
Yep.
it's more challenging. So you figure it out. But so I wrote about that in like the first four chapters, and then I talked about meeting my first husband in college and what that was. I think that was. I'm losing track. Yeah, it was okay. And then like 8 through 11 is like meeting my first husband and what our first marriage was like and going through divorce, and then when what my the from '05 to meeting John, who was my second husband, in our life together, and then 17 through I don't know whatever 25 it is or something is like what it was like to lose him and that whole journey and what that journey's been like over the last 5 years, and then kind of the truth and wisdom of lessons that I've learned over these last 5 years.
Hmm.
And
You
really,
know,
I would say 5 years because I've used them a lot. But the thing that when a lot of these things that I've used throughout my life, I actually kind of learned at an early age because I had to growing up with a disability. So I kind of learned it early. So I always knew them. But then when I went through my divorce and now what I'm going through now, I had to like kind of like muscle memory, like had an opportunity to use them more and kind of straighten those muscles. You know what I mean? And like, okay,
right.
let's put into practice what we already learned with the disability and use it for putting a life back together after a crappy first marriage and a divorce. And then now doing that currently after losing through grief
Hmm.
and loss. So anyway,
Well, and we all experience it. We just finished doing a series on marriage, uh, and it's been really good because I'm in a great marriage, but I haven't always been that way. I've been through divorce as well.
yeah,
I have some relatives, I have some friends, I have some listeners. Get a lot of messages from people who are hurting through divorce. A
yeah.
lot the statistics on divorce are just crazy anymore, and uh,
I haven't done it in a long time, but those I remember those days. I was divorced in '05, so that was this side of 17 years ago. But those days are not forgotten. I remember what that was like. It's whew, rough,
yeah,
or it
and
can be.
so I want to encourage my listeners that have that gone through it to get this book, look at that, read it, read your story. But you know, grief comes in many different forms, not just death. The
Oh
loss
yes.
of a marriage is traumatic in itself, and ever wondering if how is God going to take this and use this? How's God, where is God in the midst of this is a great question sometimes in our life. And some people are like, how dare you question God? Well, come on, let's be honest. We all question.
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, before the longest book in, well, I actually might get that wrong. I think it was before Psalms, or maybe it was after. No, it was after. It was before Psalms. One of the not longest books in the Bible, but at least 40 to 42 chapters, if I'm not mistaken. Wasn't that kind of much the whole through line or plumb line or centerpiece around the book of Job, where he was basically arguing with God, and he
You know,
wasn't smited. He lived to tell. So
but that's the thing. And that's why I love stories like yours, because you went through these traumatic events, but you see the God side of it, and you being willing to share your story is a tremendous gift, because that allows other people who are in the midst of it to learn from your tragedies, your triple D's, but then also helps some people to maybe going into those areas, save them some heartache, save them some pains, and they can learn from our stories when we're willing to share it. So, first
I
part,
like to
thank you for
think that.
sharing them.
Oh, you're welcome, and I have no problem. I'm going to say two things to that. First of all, you know that expression we hear in society about what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Yes.
Well, there's an
Yep.
author version of that. What doesn't kill you gives you something to write about
Yes.
or talk about if you're a speaker. So I'll do both. But
I know when
um,
I wrote my book, I had a lot of people like, wow, that was, and you'll understand when you read it, because I'm very
yeah,
authentic and real in it.
yeah.
Um, and people are like, where did you come up with the strength to write that? Why did you write that? Some people are like, I would never put that out there. And it's like, because
When
God
you're
called me
giving
to
a
do that.
story, exactly. When you're given a story or a message, what you're supposed to bottle up and keep it to yourself. I mean, it's for a reason and for a purpose. And has it been easy? What got me to the message that I have to share? Not really. It's actually not been that fun for a lot of it, but it, I don't think I was given it just for the crap of it. If
Yep.
I can help someone along their way, then okay, then it's not wasted. It's being put to use or purpose or whatever you want to call it. But so I don't know. And I get this question a lot too. We haven't talked about this yet, but I wrote from an early age. I've always written. It's just who I am, and if I'm not doing it, then I'm thinking about it. I'm planning it. I'm like, okay, what's my next project? I got one in an editor right
Mm-hmm.
now, one in a formatter's office, and I don't have a lot of time to write right now in the sense that we're fixing me out for the holidays. I don't know how old your child is. Mine are 12 and 9, so we're fixing me on Christmas break, and I schedule my writing schedule around what I call mommy schedule, quote unquote. um, I do most of my writing during the school year, but so I took this time to line up my manuscripts, getting ready for which ones I need to work on and where I'm at for January. So I did a lot of that this week. But anyway, so yeah, it's just looking at what I want to share over the next couple of in the series that I'm building out. And so anyway, and oh, I know what the other thing I want to say. I have so many thoughts, I don't know where to go sometimes. I told you I didn't mind talking. Um, I don't disagree that if a person is fortunate enough to learn to prevent them from their mistake, but some things in life are unavoidable. It's not a question of will this happen, it's a question of when. We all go through struggle, we all go through seasons of
Right.
tribulation. We're not getting out of it in this life. It's not, we live in a fallen world. You're not avoiding it. It's a question of when and to what
Yeah.
degree and how bad is it going to be and what kind. So if we're all going to have to go through something, my tribulation and struggles may not be yours and yours may not be mine, but it's the still same idea of if back to the choice thing, that when those hard seasons come, if you want to choose to overcome, you may not be able to avoid going through the storm because the storm's coming, y'all. I hate to burst anyone's little
Yep.
bubble, if you haven't figured that out yet, you better strap in and get ready, because one's coming at some point. You may not know when, you may not know how, you
Right.
may not know what, but it's coming. It's called life. Not to be totally brutally honest and burst anyone's little bubble, but I don't believe in.
That's what it is.
Yeah, I don't believe in sugarcoating. And don't. I'm not that. If you want sugarcoat, I'm not your girl. Um. So if I can't avoid it, like I didn't choose to be born blind and with a disability, I had no say in that. Granted, I walked away from my marriage, first marriage, and I chose that divorce, but I did not choose the things that led up that made that divorce necessity. Those were his choices, not mine.
Right.
Now, was I a perfect wife? Not really. Are we any of us perfect spouses? And I didn't choose that. And I dang sure didn't choose to have my husband, who was the love of my life, the father of my two children, who were in the other room at the time in 2017 of 6 and 3, to, in a blink of an eye, be gone.
Hmm.
I didn't choose that. So while we may not always choose on our journeys through life the doors that we come across, that the we're not the knocks that come in our life for the doors, we do get to choose if we're going to open that door or if we're going to slam it shut. And if we choose to open that door, are we going to receive or reject what comes through that door? Now, we may not know what's the other side of that door till we choose to open it, of an opportunity or an obstacle. So if we can't avoid it, the question sometimes becomes, what can we do to be prepared to not better ourselves, as far as, well, I mean, we do want to improve, but I don't mean it like improve yourself, but be better prepared and equipped to know how to make that journey through that storm smoother. Not easier, but a path through so we get to the other side. And
Yeah.
that's a lot of what my system has been. I can't change the disability. I was divorced, so I can't change that. And I can't bring my husband back. But what I can do is take the lessons I've learned to allow myself to have a system that helps me on the hard days. And that's kind of what my system's about. Not necessarily changing it, but knowing how to get through it easier, or not easier, but in a more prepared manner. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It does. And because we get to we choose. I don't know. Let me say this in the right way. Identity is very important to me, my identity, because for the longest time I let my circumstances and my situations define who I was. Then
That all define.
I realized that was a choice I was making, and I don't have to take the worst moments in my life
Yep.
and let that define who I am. I can take those worst moments in my life and build a better
Yep.
me out of that. But I refuse to let any more, because for the longest time, I let people speak that over me. And therefore, I chose that.
Right.
And I've had to learn so many lessons in that, like who I surround myself with is really
Yep.
important. Uh, just all these choices we get to make, you know? And it's funny because in the midst of this, God got me a job at a prison. And then I ended up being the transition teacher. So
Mhm.
before guys could leave the prison system, they had to go through a transition class with me. And my job was teaching them how to make better choices in life, how to
Right.
get a job, and just all this stuff. And I found in the midst of that how God was using all those past mistakes in my life, all those bad choices
Yeah.
I did, and how now to apply that and teach others how what I learned from those moments. And it's funny, in the midst of teaching this class, because it was a job, it was a way it was going to pay bills, did I realize that God was going to use
Right.
those men to help create in me a new identity of who Christ is in me through
Right.
that experience.
We have circumstances that come. We may choose those circumstances, we may not, but they're coming. I just so happen in my life, I have three, my D's, that I didn't really choose. But what I do get to choose is, what I like to say is, I can either be defined by them, or I can define what I do with them, and I can choose what I do with them. And that's our only control we have in this life. And what your point about what you did in that job that you just talked about kind of goes into the second book in my religious series that hopefully will be coming out in February, is what I call the ripple effect. It's those pebbles that we pick up in our choices that we drop into the proverbial metaphorical waters of our pond to send out ripples through our choices to other people's ponds that eventually might send out. It's this whole ripple effect of creating waves of influence, and we can choose to either contribute or contaminate, help or harm what we do with those waves, with the pebbles that start with our choices. Like, what pebble are we going to choose to pick up to drop in the waters to send out this ripple effect?
Yes. Yep. And it's amazing. It took me 50 some years to learn some of those life lessons, but we're never too old to learn, and we're going to keep learning till we go. And I like where you keep what you keep saying too. It's life.
Mm.
God's never promised us, you know, that
Mm-mm.
everything's going to be great. I
Nope.
We're in a season right now where things are just we're living our best life right now. But me and my wife, we're embracing this because we know
Yep.
this will there will be hard times again. There will be things that will come our way that will maybe shake us to our core. The thing
Mhm.
is, we're building a stronger foundation now
Right.
that when
That
they
can
come,
better prepare you when they do come, that firm foundation. I have never understood why the people in the church, or the church communicates, for the ones that do, not everyone, I'm not saying that
right,
get this impression of, well, believe Christ in your life is easy. Excuse me? Where's that in scripture? And believe me, I don't think Christ would come back and said, my life was easy. I died on the cross for you people. So what
right,
makes you think you're going to get it easy? Yes, he makes our burden and helps us make carrying it easier, but there's no get out of tribulation or struggle card. If you find it, let me know, but good luck with that. You ain't going to find it, darling. And you're not going to find a roadmap, and you're not going to find an instruction manual. I've looked, trust me, it don't exist. But whoever finds it first lets the other one know. Now, what I have discovered that I would like to share with you is the 5 things that I put into my process. Let's go with it where you want to go.
well, what's those 5 steps?
I call it finding grace through grief, but it also could be in life because, like I said, if someone chooses and makes the decision to choose to overcome, what overcoming is overcoming. It may be a different thing you're overcoming, but the idea of what it takes to overcome is the same thing no matter what the obstacle is. You just have to choose it. So I say the G of grace is grounding, that foundation we were talking about. What are you going to hold you steady and steadfast in that firm foundation to hold to when those storms are coming? Because they're coming, people. You may not like
Right,
it, but it's happening. So what are you going to hold to brace yourself and hold you steady and strong and firm when that storm's coming? That's the G, grounding. For me, it would be my faith and a few other
okay,
things, but that's central. Um, First and foremost, always. I would not be here having these conversations, writing these books, and having this message to tell if I didn't have that to hold to all throughout my life, not just in one season versus another, but in all 3 of the D's we talked about. So that's the G of grace. The
okay,
R of grace is the idea of redesign, daring to redefine and redirect your course in life when something happens and you go, whoa, wait a minute, what now? You have to be willing to come up with a new direction in defining it for yourself. That whole thing
yeah,
about not being defined by it. And for a lot of people, that's, as if you want to go back to faith, it's looking to God to help you figure out what that new course is going to be. So, correct me if I'm wrong, Psalm 119, 105, light into my feet, path thing. I'm not quoting it very well. I'm not good at that, but I think anyone who knows what we're talking about could figure it out.
yes,
I probably could look it up on my phone, but I don't know where it's at right now. So being daring to have the courage to say, okay, life's changing. I'm in a storm. What do I want next? Redefining and redirecting what you want it to be, and not being, well, okay, that happened. Well, I don't know, or whatever. I'm being dramatic, but I don't mean to minimize it. But
right,
um, and then the A would be, now I am not a financial person. Okay, y'all, this is not what I'm saying when I say the next one. Do not misunderstand this. Not about finances. I have someone that manages my finances, and I do pretty good with managing it, but I'm not an advisor. But what I will say is the idea of learning to live in abundance. And when I say abundance, I mean your mindset. There is a
mhm,
reason why in our society that we talk about mind over matter, and Henry Ford, when he said, You think it can happen. You don't think it won't happen. What you put your mind to literally can be what you want. How we manage our mental space and our mental bandwidth and what we allow to come in our brain. There is a quote by Martin Luther, and I'll try and quote it right. Birds can fly into the nest, but can come into the nest, but you don't have can come into something about in the nest, but you don't have to let them feather the nest. You can't control the thoughts and emotion that come into your head. But once again, what you do with those thoughts and emotion and how you let it influence and impact what you do or don't do, we do have control over that. And it comes down to choice
Yes.
again. And our
Yes.
mindset, having a good, positive, healthy mindset, although I'm not saying it's easy, I think it's one of the harder things we'll ever do.
Right.
And I have my bad days too. So I'm not saying that. But the mindset is key in staying true to the course that you wanted to define to help you make the choices to keep you standing on that foundation. Okay. They all work together. One leads to the next. So that's the A in abundance and grace. The C is about care and choosing care and clarity over chaos and confusion. Okay.
Mm.
So it's self care. That's a huge piece for me. And I feel like each one of these letters could be their own little podcast interviews in itself because there's
Oh,
so much
yes.
to them. But, we don't have time probably for a deep dive into each, but it's basically the idea of self care. And people think it's selfish, but it's really not. And I was looking at this when I was writing the book that's at the editor's office right now. There's actual, believe it or not, there's a scriptural foundation for self care. And we can argue the point about it, but I was thinking about it. Oh, shoot. I forgot to add that in the book. Dang it. Crap. I'll tell my editor. Okay. Sorry. Note to self. I just remember thinking about this because I didn't ever look it up. That's how my mind works, y'all. I know you're going on this crazy ride with Michaela's brain. She thinks of things and it leads to other things. Sorry, y'all. Welcome to my world. Um, if Christ himself took time to go off and meditate, why do we think we don't need self-care, people? We're the imperfect beings, okay? I mean, hello, can I get an amen? Like, come
Yep.
on. So y'all can, whoever wants to argue the point, but there is actual scriptural basis for the idea of recharging. And I mean, he took off, God himself who made the universe took the seventh day off, people, for rest. Okay, now he probably doesn't really need rest, but it was the idea of building in what he knew us humans would need and demonstrating
Right.
it. The point is, come on, y'all. Why are we thinking it's selfish when there is, I'm sorry, if that happened in scripture and Christ himself did it, then who am I to say that I don't need it? Okay. I don't
Yeah.
know. Maybe I'm the crazy one, but okay. Like I said, I could dive off on this forever, but so that's the C in grace is choosing care and clarity over chaos and confusion, because when we take care of ourselves, we're not overwhelmed, we're not frazzled, we're not going burning five ends of the candlestick and then not being, because we're so burnt out, we don't have the clear mind. So we're confused and stressed and all these things. So then we can't live in an abundance mindset. So then we can't make clear decisions. And then we don't know what to do with our foundation. So it, like I said, it all, one helps the other. So that's the C of grace. And then the last one is equipped, being essentially equipped to gather the resources you need to help you get the self care you need, to help you be able to have the healthy mindset that you need, to make the choices you want to define this new life for you, to have a foundation to stand on. So, grace, grounding, redesign, abundance, care, and equipped.
Equipped. Awesome. I love that. I love that. And that's going to be out in your new book that you're doing?
Yeah, I hope that'll be out in March or April.
What's the name of that book?
Finding grace through grief, discovering the keys to go from surviving to thriving in grief in life. Something like that. I'm not looking at it. Sorry. It's in my
Well,
Google Doc.
while we're talking about, well, let's talk about your website real quick.
Yeah.
And let me pull that up here for everybody so that they
And
can see
all
it.
five of those things, while you're pulling that up, if you think about them, it's not an exact like go here, but it's the things that'll tell you, okay, if I want to overcome, this is what I need to be working on. And they literally could work for anybody and everybody, no matter what you're trying to overcome. Because it's the principles of overcoming that help you overcome or triumph or be empowered to overcome whatever you're struggling with. So that's
Right.
why I say it's universal to everyone. But what I've had to travel through, y'all won't, but I didn't have to travel through other things, but I still think it could help everyone.
Right.
But
Well,
that's my
here
motherhood
we
story.
are on your website right now,
Mhm.
looking at all this. This is her books right here. Let's go at the top. Um, she has Ready, Set, Go.
That's the
Uh,
motherhood series. That's book 2 in it.
okay.
I hope to
So
have
that's
book
your.
3 out in May or September this year, maybe book 4. That's the Now I
Now, here,
See series that we were talking about.
yes, that's the book that I'm going to start with right there is Now I See, because I love a good uh, true story. So take a sip, take a breath series. And so
Yep.
that's what was at the top that we were talking about. Scripture, spirituality, and our culture series
Yep.
here. That will
One of
probably
my
be my
faves.
second one that I would want to look into. But
I
then,
hope the second book will come out in February on that one. That is a book, the Before the Clock Strikes Midnight, I wrote as an idea that I want my children to have one place to go. Like, I know we always say to our kids all the time, "This is really important." No, this is important too. Like, all the things are important, but as as my kids get older and when they graduate, because they're 12 and 9 right now, go out into the world. If they say, "What does mom and dad want us to know?" I'm going to go look at that book. Now, whether they will or not, I don't know, but at least they'll be in one spot for them. So I hope to build it. And then it's
yeah,
for parents and grandparents and guardians to think about what do we want to instill in our children? Like, what important life lessons and wisdoms of truth do we want to give our kids for life? So that's what that series is about.
okay. And then we have We the People.
Yeah, that's
We the
politics.
People
I'm
are.
weird.
I get it. And then
That's what my
here's,
master's in, and I like it. So I could talk about that for days. I love it. So
and
that
then we
is
were
my
talking
poetry
about,
book I did a long time ago, and then that was just a fun one for me, living the beach life because I'm a beach girl. So anyway,
yes, we were talking about that. I live in Pensacola, Florida, where she wishes she could live, and she's
yeah,
living where
in
there's snow.
Louisiana. No, we don't get snow in
So,
Louisiana, believe it or not.
oh, you
Now I
don't?
did no every once in a while, but I did live in New Hampshire for 10 years. Where believe me, we get snow in New Hampshire, and I'm like, I'm too much of a Southern girl for this crap. It's time to go south, y'all. I need to be in flip flops by March because I lived
So
in
you have a
Texas
pod.
my whole life until I went to New Hampshire. So
So do you have your own podcast, or you're just like on with people like me, or do you host
I
one?
do not have my own podcast. People have asked me if I would ever do one. I'm like, people, maybe down the road, but I got so much stuff on my plate right now. I do not need another
I
project.
Oh, I
So I'm
know.
on a
And
lot of podcasts, but I do not make one myself. I do not like
okay,
produce one.
so there's several places here as you can look that you can see
Yeah.
that she has on here her homepage, and it's myheartfeltmeditations.com.
Mhm.
So that is how you can go to her. I'll make sure that we have that in the link below as well, so that everyone can, you know, go to your website, order your books, because that's what uh, Michaela would like for you to do today. And also, I mean, I love good
I
books.
also
Like I said,
am thinking about trying to get into speaking, and I'd love to speak for people. And I'm hopefully that book I was telling y'all about finding grace through grief. I hope to put like a coaching program together, and then I'm doing this cool thing with a group of people that I met through an organization. We're trying to put together a summit for next year, so that's going to be really exciting if we're able to pull that off. That I'll be reaching out to a lot of people about when it comes together. So got a lot of good things
well,
going on. A lot of books coming out
that's
this year,
awesome.
hopefully.
Well, that's awesome. Well, Michaela, we're about out of time, and I want to thank you so much for being on here today with us, for sharing your story, your books with us. And I'm looking forward to more conversations in the future, especially after
Absolutely.
I read
I'd
your
love that.
book. I would love to. I love to talk to an author after I have read their books and read their story on there. So I look forward to that in in the future here. So
And I'm grateful for
to
the opportunity to be on here and speak to your audience and hopefully offer something worthy to the conversation and dialogue.
well, I appreciate it. It was right on tune to what we discuss. You know, with being an intentional guy, life is all about what we the choices we make, the choices
Absolutely.
we make, and
I feel like if you
I
choose, there's a poem by Robert Frost, The Road Less Traveled. I feel like if when we make a certain life is a string of choices put together, and choosing whatever you choose that strings together leads you down one path. And if you had chosen a different string of choices, it would have led you down a different path. And it's our
yeah,
choices that create the journey that gets us to lead us to the ultimate destination. So choose what you want to get where you want to be, because it's not going to happen on its own.
yep, exactly. Well, Michaela, thank you again so much for being on our show. And until next
Yeah.
time, to my audience, just keep being intentional. We'll see you later.